जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णववृंद की जय, रामाचार्य श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद से अद्वैत गदाधर शिवास आदि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गौ गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरिवर्धन की जय, वृंदावन धाम की जय, नवद्वीप धाम की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय, गंगा माई की जय, जमुना माई की जय, तुलसी देवी की जय, भक्ति देवी की जय, स्वामी तो भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Mother LILA. Mother LILA.
Hare Krishna.
Jai. All glories to great Deva, glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna, everyone. Happy Thursday.
Hare Krishna. So, as usual, you're welcome to Hare Krishna, Africa. And I believe you're ready, so we may put the verse on the screen and we may start.
Thank you.
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, will you be sharing or will I share the screen?
If you want to share, you can do that.
I can, yes, I'm ready.
Okay, so let me give you that sharing right.
Okay. Let's see. It's my honor to be here today. I'm sending greetings to everyone here. I hope everyone is well. Okay, here we go. Okay, so today we're reading from SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM, Canto 1, Chapter 15, verse 33. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtapraye Sabhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Okay, so I'm seeking all the blessings from the devotees. Please pray for me that I may say something that can honor the Bhagavatam, honor the Vaishnavas, all of the devotees, our parampara, and the Sangha. Okay, so chapter 15, verse 33. Let's give this Sanskrit a try. Pratapya nusritya Dhananjayoditam Nasham Yadunam Bhagavatatim Chatam Ekanta Bhaktya Bhagavati Adhokshaje Niveshitatmo Pararama Samsrite. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Kunti, after overhearing Arjuna's telling of the end of the Yadu dynasty and disappearance of Lord Krishna, engaged in the devotional service of the transcendental personality of Godhead with full attention, and thus gained release from the course of material existence. And purport, the setting of the sun does not mean the end of the sun. It means that the sun is out of our sight. Similarly, the end of the mission of the Lord on a particular planet or universe only means that he is out of our sight. The end of the Yadu dynasty also does not mean that it is annihilated. It disappears along with the Lord out of our sight, As Maharaj Yudhisthira decided to prepare to go back to Godhead, so also Kunti decided, and thus she fully engaged herself in the transcendental devotional service of the Lord, which guarantees one a passport for going back to Godhead after quitting this present material body. The beginning of devotional service to the Lord is the beginning of spiritualizing the present body, and thus an unalloyed devotee of the Lord loses all material contact in the present body. The abode of the Lord is not a myth, as is thought by the unbelievers or ignorant people, but one cannot reach there by any material means like a Sputnik or space capsule. But one can certainly reach there after leaving this present body, and one must prepare himself to go back to Godhead by practicing devotional service. That guarantees a passport for going back to Godhead, and Kunti adopted it. Hey. Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jai. Okay, so this translation of this verse, Kunti, after overhearing Arjuna's telling of the end of the Yadu dynasty and disappearance of Lord Krishna, engaged in the devotional service of the transcendental personality of Godhead with full attention, and thus gained release from force of material existence. Makes it sound so easy. The first thing I was meditating on this verse is that Kunti is giving an example of everything that has happened up to this point. There's been a lot of difficulty for her, and at this point, everyone's realizing that there's nothing else to do here. The war is over, and Lord Krishna, and all of this time has passed, and now Lord Krishna has left. And so her natural reaction with this catastrophe is, because she's so attached to him, her reaction, there's nothing else for her. It's only Krishna. And so with full attention, she engages herself in the devotional service of Krishna. And then the natural reaction of that is that she gains release from the course of material existence. Upararama became released from, and samsrite, material existence, like samsara. And this word is used in the SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM in other places. So it's the cycle of birth and death, material existence, the misery of material existence. It's used in similar, with a similar connotation of this is not the place that we want to be in. But the first thing in the purport that Srila Prabhupada says is that the setting of the sun does not mean the end of the sun. Just because we can't see something doesn't mean that it doesn't exist anymore. It's just out of our sight. And so I'd like to share another verse that is it's right along these lines. It's in a different canto, but it's the same pastime. And so I'll share this. This is the same pastime, but this is when Uddhava went to Vidura and told him this same news. So the news is spreading that Krishna has left. And so this is Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 2, Verse 7. And here we have Sri Uddhava said, "My dear Vidura, the sun of the world, Lord Krishna, has set, and our house has now been swallowed by the great snake of time. What can I say to you about our welfare. So everyone's having this similar reaction. Krishna's left, oh no. And he's being referred to as the sun again. And so Srila Prabhupada says the disappearance of the Krishna sun may be explained as follows, according to the commentary of Srila Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakur. Vidura was struck with great sorrow. In another canto, I forget what canto it is. I think it's also the third canto. It's described how Vidura experiences great grief. He's like devastating grief. So he's having this experience, but he's also very advanced. So he has great grief, and then he also, with his advancement and his intelligence, he knows what to do with that. He knows that, okay, I'm experiencing this grief, but he also knows that one is to practice being detached. So this continues. Vidura was struck with great sorrow when he got the hint of the annihilation of the great Yadu dynasty, as well as of his own family, the Kuru dynasty. Uddhava could understand the grief of Vidura, and therefore he first of all wanted to sympathize with him by saying that after the sunset, everyone is in darkness. So he's acknowledging that he's in suffering. And so often when someone's in suffering, the first thing we want to do is just give them some Bhagavatam verse, some SRIMAD Bhagavatam verse, some Bhagavad Gita verse, and try to make them feel better. Oh, Prabhu, you should be detached. But that doesn't validate what someone else is experiencing, the suffering that he's experiencing. And so he sympathizes with him and says, yes, of course, you're in darkness. I understand. We're all in darkness. Since the entire world was merged in the darkness of grief, neither Vidura nor Uddhava nor anyone else could be happy. And so sharing in the suffering of another person, that's really empathizing with them. Uddhava was as much aggrieved as Vidura, and there was nothing further to be said about their welfare. The comparison of Krishna to the sun is very appropriate. As soon as the sun sets, darkness automatically appears. But the darkness experienced by the common man does not affect the sun itself, either at the time of sunrise or of sunset. Lord Krishna's appearance and disappearance are exactly like that of the sun. He appears and disappears in innumerable universes, and as long as he is present in a particular universe, there is all transcendental light in that universe. But the universe from which he passes away is put into darkness. His pastimes, however, are everlasting. They're going on right now. We just are not aware of them. The Lord is always present in some universe, just as the sun is present in either the Eastern or the Western hemisphere. The sun is always present either in India or in America. But when the sun is present in India, the American land is in darkness. And when the sun is present in America, the Indian hemisphere is in darkness. As the sun appears in the morning and gradually rises to the meridian and then again sets in one hemisphere while simultaneously rising in the other, so Lord Krishna's disappearance in one universe and the beginning of his different pastimes in another take place simultaneously. As soon as one pastime is finished here, it is manifested in another universe, and thus his Nitya Lila, or eternal pastimes, are going on without ending. As the sunrise takes place once in 24 hours, similarly, the pastimes of Lord Krishna take place in a universe once in a daytime of Brahma, the account of which is given in the Bhagavad Gita as 4,300,000 solar years. But wherever the Lord is present, all his different pastimes are described in the revealed scriptures, taking place at regular intervals. As at sunset, the snakes become powerful, thieves are encouraged, ghosts become active, and the lotus becomes disfigured, and the Chakravaki laments. So with the disappearance of Lord Krishna, the atheists feel enlivened, and the devotees become sorry. Oh, so this is a difficulty. Everyone's going through this difficulty. Krishna has gone, and everyone is lamenting. And this is Kunti's reaction. I heard there's a quote, I'm not exactly sure where it comes from, but it's, I believe it comes from a Christian person that was describing one of the Psalms in the Bible. And this person says, if you feel far from God, guess who moved? So God, Krishna, he doesn't go anywhere, in the sense that when the sun is rising or setting, or apparently rising or setting, it's not that it's not that the sun has actually disappeared. It just has gone out of our sight. We just can't see it. We're at a vantage point, or from a point of view where we can't see it. And so sometimes when we feel that we're wondering, looking for Krishna, where's Krishna? Krishna, where are you in this situation? This catastrophe has happened. Where are you? What does this mean? When we say, what does this mean? We're looking for Krishna. We're looking for meaning. Krishna is meaning. And so this is Kunti's reaction. She sees, okay, I don't see Krishna anymore. Her reaction is, after a lifetime of practice, she's able to meditate fully, completely, purely. It didn't just happen overnight. She's practiced this over and over. And we are actually lucky enough, we're fortunate enough that we could see this progression, this example of a life of a saint, of a pure devotee, that the practice is over and over, moment to moment. It's continuous. Everything is set up so that we can practice returning, taking shelter back to Krishna. So some catastrophe happens, some small thing, some irritation, or some big things, one of the sufferings of the many types of sufferings that we have in the world. And what do? We take shelter of Krishna, but that only comes, this devotional service, with full attention, the way Queen Kunti is displaying for us. Not displaying, but displaying, is this full attention. It's described here, ekanta, unalloyed, pure, just nothing else. So unalloyed is referred to, is a word that's used with metals. So when different metals are combined, they're alloyed. And so unalloyed, it's pure, uncombined with anything else, ekanta. And so she's having this full attention, full meditation, of our devotion towards Krishna. And so what is this devotional service? Right? So our Shastra describes this devotional service as the 9 processes of bhakti: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atma Nivedanam. Hearing the name and glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, just like we're doing now. This is so Krishna has built in a system that is so simple for us. I need simple. I'm so simple. That's why I'm going through these. These are all basic processes of bhakti. This is a basic understanding, but I always need to go back to the basics, because I have to learn the basics, the foundation. This is just where I am. Hearing the names and glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, chanting his glories. We're speaking about him. Remembering the Lord, we're remembering Lord Krishna, serving the Lord's feet, worshiping the deity, offering obeisances unto the Lord, acting as the Lord's servant, making friends with the Lord, Sakyam, surrendering oneself fully to the Lord. And so it seems it's simple. Prabhupada says it's simple for the simple, complicated for the complicated. But it's difficult because there are so many other options of things to do. The mind is a very powerful thing. This is one of the things that Arjuna speaks to Krishna about. Why is this mind so hard to control? It's harder to control than the wind. And so it is simple, but it's not as simple as just one paragraph. Okay, Kunti, we're reading between the lines. This is one paragraph that is describing this verse, but it's the practice of a lifetime. It's her diligence of going back surrendering to Krishna, surrendering to Krishna. And she says in her prayers, let these calamities come again and again so that I can see you. And so this is her surrender, her taking shelter, is her looking for him, finding him. But it is a practice, and Krishna says, whatever we've been meditating on, in the Bhagavad Gita, he tells Arjuna this, whatever we've been meditating on, that will be our destination. And so this is how it's practiced, moment after moment, and we use these uncomfortable moments, the catastrophes, the irritations, the sufferings, take those as an opportunity, see it as a blessing. And it's not an empty, I don't know, maybe empty isn't the right word, but it's not an inauthentic way of seeing it as a blessing. And what I mean by that, it doesn't mean that we ignore that we are having discomfort, that we are in suffering, that things hurt, that things bother us, that we experience some pain. We acknowledge those things, we feel them deeply. And when someone else is going through some suffering, some discomfort, some irritation, some disturbance, we acknowledge their hurt, we acknowledge their pain, we empathize, we're compassionate. And then we remember that our practice is to take shelter of Krishna. That's what it means to go back to Godhead, is the moment where you're thinking of Krishna, he's present. He says he's present. There's no difference in remembering him and chanting his glories and hearing of his glories. And so this built-in system gives us so many different ways of returning to him. And in this purport, Srila Prabhupada says, he says this, he uses this phrase more than once, the beginning of devotional service. So the moment that we start to practice the beginning of devotional service to the Lord is the beginning of spiritualizing the present body, right here, right now, today, in this body. I don't have to get another one. I don't have to wait. It's not in the future, in some time that I don't know if it's going to come or not. We don't waste time. I heard once that someone asked a question in a Bhagavatam class in Mayapur. What does it mean to be a pure devotee, a devotee? What is a pure devotee? And the answer was very practical. It was so profound. It's someone who doesn't waste one moment. And so it's practice. For me, I waste so many moments, but it's the desire is there. And I'm reminded by the devotees that I don't want to waste time. I want to use every moment to go back to Godhead. But it doesn't have to wait. It happens here right now. And thus an unalloyed devotee, this is Srila Prabhupada again, and thus an unalloyed devotee of the Lord loses all material contact in the present body. In the present body, he says this. He uses this phrase 3 times in this purport. So then he says that after leaving this present body, we can attain Godhead. So what does that mean? That means pure, unalloyed, right? We can't, and he uses this, I like this, he's speaking a lot about travel. He uses the word passport twice, going back to Godhead, getting a passport to go back to Godhead, being admitted into the spiritual world. But we can only be admitted into the spiritual world when we learn to travel light, when we learn to leave all of these things behind that don't serve us. We can't take them into the spiritual world. We can't bring this false ego. We can't bring our nartas. They won't make it past customs. They'll say, sorry, you have too much stuff. You either stay here with this stuff or you leave the stuff behind. Learning to travel light. Otherwise, we can't get in. We won't get admittance. And so how do we do that? It's the practice over and over. taking shelter, remembering Krishna. And so Kunti's wise, she's practiced this, and we're associating with her. This is our association. And so when we associate with something, we start to take on the qualities. That's why association can make or break us. When we spend our time and open our hearts to people, activities, things that those qualities keep adding to our baggage, they won't help. That's why we choose our association wisely. So what are we associating with? Who are we associating with? We're associating with Kunti, Queen Kunti. We're associating with the Bhagavatam, who's a person, is alive. Tell me who your friends are and I'll tell you who you are. My friends, Sakyam, my friends are the devotees at Hare Krishna, Africa. My friends, the Bhagavatam. My friend is the SRIMAD Bhagavatam. My friend is the Bhagavad Gita. My friend is Srila Prabhupada. My friend is Krishna. That's who I'm associating with. But if I'm not aware, I don't know how I'm using my time, who I'm associating with. So we're associating with Queen Kunti. So what can we get? Some wisdom, these qualities we can strive for. We take association of the highest. The first association is the association that I have with myself too. What is that like? From the time I go to sleep to the time I wake up, everything in between, even when I'm dreaming, I'm associating with myself. That's it. I'm stuck with this person. No refunds, no exchanges. So what does that mean? If I want to choose my association wisely, what is it like to hang out with me? All right, this is being introspective, being honest with where I am. How can I get to the spiritual world if I myself I'm not good association? I can't, like I said, I can't take this ego with me. It won't make it through. So what is it like? We're talking about devotional service. We want to offer devotional service. Okay, we talked about that. One of the things is offering friendship to the Lord, serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Do I know what that is like? What is my love like? What is it like to be loved by me? And so I asked that in the mood of being introspective, to know, asking for feedback from Krishna, from the devotees, from my loved ones. How am I doing? What is it like to be on the other side of me? Do we have the courage to ask that of ourselves and ask that of others? How do I love? How do I have compassion? How do I show up? How do I take care of myself? Because that's really where if I can't take care of myself, if I can't be compassionate, treating myself as a servant of Krishna. I don't sleep right, I don't eat right, I don't exercise. Then how can I love and treat someone else? How can I serve someone else? Right? This equanimity, seeing with equal eyes, that includes myself. And so what needs do I have that I need to attend to? What are my needs? How can I please the Lord, right? This is devotional service. Everything is done in the CC Chaitanya Charitamrita. Adi Lila talks about the gopis, the love of the gopis, and how everything that they do is for the pleasure of Krishna. Everything that they do is pure. It's not transactional. It's not a business. So if I don't know what my needs are, How can I satisfy the needs of the Lord? It's a question. I'm not, I'm asking myself, I'm asking all of us. Maybe it's part of a larger conversation, but it's this the sense what I was receiving from this purport is we're reading between the lines. Between the lines is an entire lifetime of practice by Queen Kunti. We don't just wake up one day, or we could, yeah. Actually, Srila Prabhupada said, in one moment you can be back to Godhead, surrender to Krishna, take shelter of Krishna. One moment, doesn't take anything else. But usually that comes from a lifetime of practice or past lifetimes of practice. And then Krishna says, whatever we've been cultivating, we end up there. So in Bhagavad Gita, this is chapter 8, I think. And whoever, starting with text 5, and whoever at the end of his life quits his body, remembering me alone at once attains my nature. Of this there is no doubt. He's promising. This is cause and effect. This is the result. It's not like some business transaction that may work, may not work. We're not sure. We can't guarantee, right? That's the material world. No guarantees. It's like written in the fine print. There's no fine print in Bhagavad Gita. You don't have to read the fine print, because Krishna says what he means and he means what he says. Whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, O son of Kunti, that state he will attain without fail. So twice he's saying, there's no doubt, without fail. Therefore, Arjuna, you should always think of me in the form of Krishna and at the same time carry out your prescribed duty. Of fighting, he's talking to Arjuna. With your activities dedicated to me and your mind and intelligence fixed on me, you will attain me without doubt. Ah, what a relief. Gonna get that passport. Just have to practice. So what else? What else is here? What else is this? What are we getting from this conversation? So we talked about association, our needs, our feelings. What is it like to be on the other side of me? What is it like to be loved by me? Because this was Krishna's experiencing. So the quality of how I am, the quality of how purely I can offer love and compassion, friendship, sakyam, all of these things, care, attention, the quality that what I'm bringing, that's what it feels like for Krishna to be loved by me. So naturally, I have work to do. I can see, I can be honest with myself, and there's so many times that I'm inattentive. The other day, I caught myself. I was with a friend, and I was receiving some messages, and I was so inattentive to the person that was right next to me because I was texting. Is that I don't do that often, but it just a moment of distraction where my focus went from the person who was right next to me to a phone. Yeah, there was a person on the other side, but wasn't an emergency. It could have waited. So can you imagine? I don't like how that feels, to someone not to pay attention to me. Sometimes that happens. Well, always it happens. Chanting japa. Oh, I'm like thinking about something else. I'm distracted. Krishna's right there. He's right there, right there. He's in the heart. He's in my heart. So I'm chanting japa and I'm thinking about so many other things. It's like I'm sitting with my friend, but I'm distracted. But also very fortunate because he's so fully satisfied and he's so merciful. He doesn't get offended. He understands that it's difficult here. He understands that we have an attention span. What are we? They do these studies every year or every couple of years. The attention span of the person, of a human, decreases. I think we're at the attention span, same attention span of a chicken. Like, I don't know, 8 seconds, 12 seconds. I don't know. Maybe we're at 4 seconds now. It's decreasing. It's Kali Yuga. Oh no, I have Kali Yuga memory. I can't remember everything. I Kali Yuga attention span. But he's so merciful. He doesn't get offended. Just like I was very lucky. My friend didn't get offended because I had a moment of distraction. I realized it. I put my phone away. And then that's the practice. This is the in between the lines, that every time I'm chanting or hearing and I get distracted, Krishna's not offended. He's my friend. He understands. But I go back, go back, go back. Oh, I'm so sorry. So that there's some compassion and some also having that same, if Krishna's showing me compassion and patience, he's waiting for me to, continue with this practice of every time, over and over, taking shelter, remembering, being present. He's giving me the example of how to be compassionate, how to be merciful, how to be patient. Why would I not give that to myself? So I could say, okay, Lila, you're trying. Yeah, just keep trying. It's okay. Rather than beating myself up. And why is that important? Okay, we do have to, have goals. Okay, I want to be better. There's one of the first presidents of the United States, Benjamin Franklin. He had this. He had a lot of different qualities that were very motive goodness. And one of the things that he did was he was always trying to improve his character. And so he would write these. He had a list of like maybe 12 things. And he would have these little charts. This was, I think, in the 1700s, 1800s, when this country was founded. He would have this chart, and if he had a moment where he didn't follow this principle, he would put a little dot, and he would see over time how he was improving. He would, like, over a long time, I have this chart, I'm looking. And then one time, there came a time where he followed everything perfectly. He had a day like, look how much I'm improving. I'm so good. And he went around and telling everybody. I think it was maybe 4 qualities. And he had many different lists. It's very fascinating. He went over to everyone. He said, look how I'm doing with all these qualities. I'm like, really, I'm doing it. And then his friend's response was, there's one quality that you're missing that you should probably add on your list. And he said, what's that? And he said, humility. Because he was going around bragging to everyone that he was so good in his qualities. So it's like that, always trying to improve, and there's always going to be another quality. And so this was a person's feedback. This is the love of his friend saying, Prabhu, I have another quality for you to work on. That's okay. I mean, we can give ourselves feedback. We can ask our friends, our trusted friends, for feedback. What is it like? Yeah. So let's see, where are we? The abode of the Lord is not a myth. So he said, in Bhagavad Gita. Yes, no doubt, without a doubt, without failure. It's real. But we can do it in this present body. There's no need to wait. No need to wait. That guarantees passport for going back to Godhead, and Kunti adopted it. There was I was in a program with Radhanath Swami, and he told a joke. He told a joke during this class, this talk about association. And there was a person, and there was a samosa. Okay, this person takes the samosa and eats it, and then goes out into the field, to do his business. Had to go to the bathroom after eating the samosa. And he's about to walk away, and he's hearing this voice, like, what's happening? And he looks down, and someone's talking to him. He's like, what are you saying? He says, I used to be a samosa, but look what associating with you has done to me. And so I won't describe that, what that means. You either will get it, that this effect, this aftermath of the samosa was speaking to him. I used to be whole. Now look what I am. I'm a pile of dung on the floor, all from associating with you. So I only found it appropriate to tell that joke because Radhanath Swami told that joke. So yeah, this is our highest association. So do we have any comments, any concerns, any worries?
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Mother LILA.
Any corrections, especially corrections?
Well, corrections, I don't know, but I think there are definitely some questions and maybe realizations. So, dear devotees, please, the speaker, Grace Lila Devi, is asking for questions, comments, and realization. If you have any, please do unmute and then you speak. We want to recognize Mother Rajalila's presence here today.
Hey, Hare Krishna, Rajalila.
Well, Mother Lila, I have a question for you, because you seem to be a mystic lady, because you touched on certain things that were discussed in Mother Rajalila's class 3 days ago.
Oh.
Yes. And you were quite emphatic on the point. You were stressing on it with much vigor, because you were saying, in this real lifetime, this particular lifetime, we can spiritualize our bodies, So when Mother Rajalila gave class 3 days ago, Hari Chakra Prabhu asked a question about if it's possible that right here in this material world, one's body can be spiritualized. And Mother Rajalila said, yeah, and she gave some examples. And today you were also speaking, and you were also hammering on, yes, we can spiritualize our bodies. Now, my question is, if devotees accept that when one practices spiritual life, he or she spiritualizes his or her body. And so we accept that our gurus are very, very elevated personalities. So that means that our gurus have spiritual bodies. And spiritual bodies do not require samosa. Spiritual bodies do not require Tylenol. Spiritual bodies do not require water. So how do we relate with these advanced devotees who have been able to spiritualize their bodies? Do we ignore their bodily needs And if we do not ignore their bodily needs, how do we still consider those bodies to be spiritual? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, beautiful question. Thank you. Yeah, you know, this is the effect of association, the effect of anything that I say that makes any sense is because of the association that I have and have had. For example, with LILA Prabhu and all the devotees. So thank you for saying that, because she's very, very special to me, to all of us. So in regards to your question, actually it is in our Shastra that we do ignore. It's not up to us to evaluate or analyze what we see a pure devotee do. We don't have the eyes. And so that's, I think, the first thing, you know, to be mindful of how I'm evaluating and analyzing what I'm seeing. What does it mean to spiritualize something? So you gave the example of our gurus and saintly people who have spiritual bodies, and yet they still have needs. They eat, they sleep, all these other things. They need to take rest. I think we can define, and I'd like to hear from other devotees. I think if we really define what does it mean to spiritualize something. So for example, when we offer our food to the Lord, and because it comes in contact with him, it's spiritualized. Does it look different physically? It's changed, for sure, it's changed. We know, we can feel it. We know the power of prasadam. But can we actually perceive with our limited senses that something is now spiritual? So what does it mean to spiritualize something? We have many, many things in this world, material things, that what makes them spiritual is the contact that they have with the Lord and how they are used. So in that sense, a house, I can use it for the purpose of serving the Lord. I can use it for the purpose of hosting the devotees. I can use it for the purpose of service. But does that mean that the house, I won't have to pay mortgage, I won't have to pay the water bill, I won't have to, you know, all these things? No, but it's spiritual, sure. You know, temples have cost. They cost money. They still need lights, but it's spiritual. It's not of this world anymore, but not because it's changed externally, but because its use and what it's come into contact with has spiritualized it. Maybe, and this is just one thing I'm thinking of. I'm sure there are other thoughts on this, other better ideas on this, better realizations, higher realizations than this, but that's just one thing. So sometimes we make these distinctions of material world, spiritual world, but it's all Krishna. It's all spiritual. What makes something material is when we use it not for Krishna's service, not for Krishna's pleasure. The thing itself doesn't change. So it could be a couch, a computer. My computer is very material thing, very 21st century. But if I use it for service and I use it for attending Bhagavatam class with the devotees, is it spiritual? Yes. I still have to plug it into the wall. It still has the need to be plugged into the wall. This is a thought. What do you think, Prabhu? Defeat me, because I know you can.
No. That's a very beautiful answer and a way of explaining what a spiritualized body object actually means. But the reason I was asking, and I believe the reason Hare Krishna Prabhu asked the question was and is because Srila Prabhupada oftentimes used this analogy of a metal being cooled by nature, but when it's put into fire for a longer period of time, it changes its quality and assumes the quality of fire, and therefore it burns. And so I was thinking in just one dimensional that when we say somebody's body has been spiritualized, then it means that he's become like quote unquote spiritual, even when rain falls and falls on his body, if he does not want his body to get wet, the body will not get wet because it's spiritual. And if even he touches fire, he will not even be burnt because fire is material and his body is spiritual. But your explanation is well taken. Thank you so much.
Yeah, these cities. I like that point that you made about things coming into contact with something. And we can see that. We can see the effect of coming into contact with these spiritual bodies. And also to remember that a body is also made up of the subtle. So the things we can't see with our eyes, like the mind, the intelligence, and purified ego.
Yeah.
So we can see, we've come into contact with all these pure souls, and the effects. It's almost like if you get touched some metal that's now hot, molten, it burns. When we come into contact with these bodies, we just get, we get this enlightenment, this understanding. They transfer that. So it's the same as being burned.
Yeah.
But I also have heard it described, and I forget this. I'm glad you brought this up because now I remember that the only difference between the material world and the spiritual world is our consciousness. So this is, because it's Krishna, it's the spiritual world. If our consciousness can see that, if we can perceive it, if we can acknowledge and remember. Because our Shastra says we can be inhabiting the spiritual world right here, right now. Or what is that? And that doesn't mean that everything will change like in the movies. There's now a new dimension. There is, but it has to do with our consciousness.
All right. Thank you so much, Mother.
Hare Krishna.
I see Mother Braj giggling. Or get back to her after Tribhuvanat Prabhu. Tribhuvanat Prabhu, please on mute.
Hare Krishna, Mother.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Thank you for your eloquent presentation. I find it a little fascinating. I don't know what would be your reaction to this. In the sloka, there is a word uparatma. It means that as soon as Kunti heard the disappearance of the Lord, instantly her body got cold and she actually disappeared. So what is the implication to that as it concerns devotees who practice devotional service? What is the implication for it?
Mother Lila, did you get his question?
It cut off right at the end.
Yeah, it cut off. Well, his question was, there is a specific word in the text, uparatma.
Yes, upararama. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, upararama. So it says, he was saying as soon as Mother Kunti got the news that Sri Krishna had left the physical planet, she instantly got in the mood of getting herself in touch with Krishna. So he's asking, what does that mean to devotees?
Thank you, Prabhu, for that question. I actually I myself have questions about this word, because there's different versions of the Mahabharata, and in the versions that I'm familiar with, it says that Kunti left her body at a different time, that she actually went to the forest with Dhritarashtra and Gandhari, and then she left her body when she was in their company, in their association. And so, and we also, my understanding is that a lot of the Mahabharata has many, many, many different versions that have been just appropriated and used in, you know, different ways. So I'm not sure. I wasn't sure, and I did go through this Sanskrit word to see what it meant, but I'm not 100% sure if it really meant that in that moment she left her body, or also to Upararama, become released, means to end the process of being in the cycle of samsara, of this samsrite. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what is meant, because it if you look that word in all the different places that it's used in the Bhagavatam, it means becomes released from, or got relief from, retired, or ceased to be in. I don't know if that means that she actually left her body. I think it's implied that she did, but I couldn't be sure, because there's all these other versions of the Mahabharata. So if anyone knows if this actually means that she left her body, because then it would imply that it was a chosen moment, similar to Bhishma, when he left his body. He had this, but he had a boon. To be able to choose the moment of leaving his body. And so it could mean that Kunti had, because she was such a powerful yogi, that she chose that moment to leave her body. But I'm not sure if that's it. I don't know if anyone here knows if this is what is meant by Upararama.
It's not that it's not that he left her body. Her body becomes old, and he left the moment. Her body becomes old, she left the moment, just like what you said. You said that it is true, you have different versions of Mahabharata, but there is authentic Mahabharata that says that she left with Gandhari and Dhritarashtra, you know, and they all left their body together. For this particular, just by hearing the news about Krishna, her body becomes old. Generally, we are familiar with the what do you call it, with the masses, that there are different stages of getting symptoms, different symptoms. Because here we are hearing different aspects of symptoms. Just by hearing the Lord's news, the factor, our body becomes old. But we know that from Shastra, that there are some symptoms that we hear, that our hair stand on end and different aspects of it like that. So I was just thinking, how do we fix this? How do we fix this for ourselves? Do we have this kind of experience? Does this experience occur to us just by hearing the Lord activities, our body become old? Our hair is supposed to stand on end and things like that, the different sensation we are experiencing here. So how does it apply to us?
So how do these symptoms apply to us? Yes. So thank you for clarifying that. Did you say her body becomes old?
Old, yes.
Old, okay.
Old.
From the shock, I think.
Yeah,
that we can see that happens in people, even I think even when it's not a spiritual thing. It's just something that happens to the body, where someone can wake up the next day from some stress and their hair is all white. So grief, like grief can shows itself in the body. As far as that, what happened to her, being one of the symptoms. I'm not sure that I don't know if it is or if it's not. The symptoms of experiencing this like the symptoms that are described in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, I'm not sure if it's the same as what she's going through. So I can't speak to knowing whether that happened because of the news of the grief, the immediate shock, or if it is some symptom. I don't know. I wonder if anyone here knows.
Well, Hare Krishna, I think what Tribhuvan Prabhu was trying to ask is, how do we, as sadhakas, practitioners, see in our bodies or see in the bodies of others who hear about Krishna's pastimes, and we see those symptoms manifesting in their bodies. But what I understand, and just my shallow understanding, is what it's been described here about Mother Kunti is not different from what Arjuna went through. Because just the previous chapter before this, Maharaj Yudhishthira was asking so many questions to Arjuna because Arjuna had gone to Dwaraka, and when he came back, and we know Maharaj Yudhishthira was expert in omens, looking at bodily symptoms and telling, like you say, oh, your right eye is twitching, so I know there is something positive. Your left eye is twitching, I know there is something negative. So, excuse me, Maharaj Yudhishthira used a particular word, I don't remember the Sanskrit word, but he said, I can tell for sure that something very, very grave must have happened to you in Dwaraka. Why? Because you've lost your bodily luster. Because Arjuna, it's like when you hear a very sad news, you cannot eat. And when you do not eat, you are not nourishing your body. So it will indicate on your body that something is wrong somewhere. So I think that is what is being described here. And like Tribhuvan himself also acknowledging that this does not mean that Mother Kunti immediately left her body. It's just the shock of knowing that Krishna is no more here. And I've heard many great devotees say that, actually, I'm not a devotee. Do you think I would be living here if I was a devotee knowing that Krishna is no more here? So pure devotees feel that if there is no Krishna, what is the purpose of living? So that is my little understanding. Mother Braj is here. Please unmute.
Haribol, thank you so much for these beautiful questions. I was smiling because I so much love that question, Sahadev, that you asked. You always ask these questions that requires critical philosophical thinking.
Yeah.
I just love that. And Tribhuvan Prabhu, I was just very deep questions. I was just reflecting on just even in this world, we can see some of these symptoms in devotees when devotees that they love leaves. For example, when Srila Prabhupada left, so many of his disciples, there's so many physical symptoms that they had. Many of them couldn't function for years and years, and so many of them were stunned in grief from Prabhupada leaving. Similarly, when Gaur Govinda Maharaj left, there's so many physical symptoms that was shown by so many of those devotees that loved him so dearly. His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, similarly, that those symptoms were there for some devotees. And of course, now with Kadamba Kanna Maharaj, we can see so many of his disciples, their sadness from the grief that they're experiencing, we can see it in their physical bodies, even now. So it's not, the Sastra, and I love to share these points that the Sastra is really there to help us to look at things in our daily life to see. So that question Tribhuvanat Prabhu asked was so beautiful, because it makes us critically think, how do we see that in our lives today? And we can't see it. We can't see it. We may not be seeing it as far as Krishna is concerned, but Krishna sends his representatives to help us to understand. That's why the representatives are here with us. Yeah. So I do think it's, yeah. So thank you for that question. And then that question that Sahadev asked, that was just such a, Lila, I was smiling because Lila, I'm so proud of how you have internalized so much in the scriptures, because you answered him in a way that he could not come back with something else. And in the devotees from Africa, you gotta have it together. Otherwise, they got a lot going on to defeat you. So it was a beautiful question, and you answered it so wonderfully. Yeah, it was just, I was just smiling about that, about this consciousness, this question, about that's how they were sharing. The questions how they shared I was just like, whoa, okay, Sahab.
Yeah.
You gotta know what you're talking about.
This is my favorite quality of this Sangha, is that it pushes me to think and shows me how much I don't know, which is, encouraging, like, oh yes, so much. This is, yeah. So it's a learning, a big learning.
I have a question for you, Lila.
Please.
Because I know, like, your nature is, you have such a sweet and generous nature, and you always want people to know that spiritual life is to be joyfully performed. And I totally get that, because I know you so well. However, I was a little bit wondering about this when you were saying how compassionate Krishna is, how kind Krishna is, how loving Krishna is, which we all know. We read that in Shastra, and we see those representatives, how they behave, right? Once they've, because of their a connection with Krishna. So my question is, in cultures where guilt and shame is predominant, how would you encourage someone that thinks, if I'm not, like, rigorously, following the rules and regulations, and I'm doomed for hell because of guilt and shame, because that's how cultures teach people. How do you reconcile having guilt and shame about not doing our best or trying our best, to connect with the Lord?
Thank you. Oh, I love this question. Well, I understand this very much because I come from a culture where guilt and shame is used as ways and tools of teaching, not just from the cultural aspect, but from the religious aspect. Being raised Catholic, it's instilled. You're born a sinner. You're born, sometimes maybe the language. What I've learned so far is just bringing awareness to it first, because it's like SRIMAD BHAGAVATAM says, they can't, where there's light, there can't be darkness anymore. So once I bring the light of awareness to something, now I see it. Now it's changing, it's transforming. But very practically, I've been in this process of trying to understand that guilt and shame for me is not conducive to my growth. So if let's say, for example, we have plants, and we choose what we want to fertilize them with, or what we want to feed them so that they will thrive. In that context, guilt and shame will actually not help that plant thrive. it's like putting something harmful into it. And so I've noticed that and then it takes a lot of awareness for us to see how we talk to ourselves. And I'm responsible for seeing how I talk to myself, how I talk to other people, and whether that is contributing to an internal and external culture of love, or if it's contributing to the opposite, to trying to guilt myself or guilt someone else into doing the right thing. Krishna, this is my limited understanding. Krishna does not want me to do something because I feel guilty if I don't do it. I'm not sure that that is the definition of love. And I don't think that he wants that. And he certainly doesn't need it, because he has universes full of devotees who love him purely. And just like any other relationship, if you offer me something out of love or out of friendship, or I offer you something, but I don't really want to do it, I'm doing it because out of duty or out of some cultural sense of, I have to do this, I have to buy you this present, I have to, show up for you. I certainly wouldn't want someone to give me something in that mood. I would want it to come from the heart. I would want it to be free. Otherwise, no thanks. I remember my mom would be like that. She'd ask you to do something, and if you did it in a bad mood or with a bad attitude, well, one, you'd probably get in trouble, but the second thing was like, forget it, I don't need you to do it, because the mood, the attitude is what counts. And so what's working so far is to bring attention and awareness to the guilt and the shame and how I give that to myself from conditioning. I don't blame myself for it. This is how the mind was conditioned and how it's reacting. But to be really aware that guilt and shame is not food for love. It's just not. This is just my understanding. I don't know what the positive aspects of guilt and shame are, but I know that it certainly doesn't contribute to growth and thriving in a joyful way. It's tense. There are other strategies, I think. We don't have to learn by pain only. We can learn by love. I can be taught the same lessons by life and by Krishna, of discipline, of endeavoring. I can be taught by love. Similar how we can be taught as children. Discipline can be taught in a mode of goodness, and discipline can be taught in the mode of ignorance. Like anything else, there's modes. I wonder if that helped. And I wanted to, one more comment about what was brought up about the effects of what we observe in people. Awareness, attention, when someone's going through something, how often do we even notice that their face looks sad, or they're, LILA, you're expert at this. You can look at someone and see, oh, what's going on? What's happening? Because you pay attention, you're so aware, present with people.
That's why I try to avoid her sometimes.
Yeah, so I just wanted to mention that the attention and awareness that is required to notice these differences in the body.
I mean, if your mind and your demeanor isn't good enough, don't get close. Don't get close to Raj, because she will catch you on a beat. Okay. Thank you, Mother Lila. Thank you so much. Tribhuvanatha, do you have another question or something to say? Please unmute.
No, I have a comment. I see the question Mother raised was a fantastic question, because it's a question that has to do with every one of us. We see, materially speaking, guilt and shame is a tool of the managers. The managers use this tool to regulate the employees. But in spiritual life, we see that the reverse is the case. when we are affected by guilt and shame, it's because we are still very much conscious about the body. But if we are, away from the bodily platform, it has no place in our spiritual growth. This is my comment.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Well taken. I hope you all got what Tribhuvan Prabhu shared. Well, I have something to say in that regards, because you are right in saying what you're saying, but I do not think you are absolutely right on that. In the sense that Mother Vraj was giving class and she was expressing how shallow and limited the English language is in regards to spirituality. And so English words are really, really limited to what the Sanskrit words express, especially in our scriptures. And so when we look at the definition of guilt, there are other definitions, and we usually take the one that is a wrong side. But there is a positive side to guilt, because Sanatana Goswami felt guilty that he was unable to go to Jagannath Puri yearly, because when he entered into his advanced age, he could not go, even though he was forcing to go. But Krishna himself came and says, no, my dear Sanatana, I do not want you to do this. Now, if we look at the definition of guilt, let me see if I can put it up here for everybody else to see. Let me see here. All right. It says guilt, the fact of having committed a specified or implied offense or crime. So this we do not want. Another meaning, a feeling of having done wrong. We do not want that. Or failed in an obligation. We want that. We should have, and Sanatana Goswami was going through this because he had pledged himself. And I think Kusha Prabhu also asked a similar question, where he was asking, some devotees have already made pledges that they will go to Mayapur every year. And the COVID came, they could not travel. So what do? So in such a situation, there is nothing wrong in having guilt that I made this promise to my Lord, but because of this circumstance, I cannot do it. But it should not be such a situation that because of certain circumstances beyond what we could do, we kill ourselves or do something crazy. But it is a fact that one should feel guilty if he fails in his obligation. That is my little understanding to that question. Srimad Prabhu, you have something to share? Mother Lila, you have something to share on that?
Yeah, I appreciate this point, because Prabhupada does say, not sure if it's the beginning of Sri Shopanishad, but he says that, he says that remorse is actually a good thing if it leads to change, because it can lead us to change our behavior. One of the definitions that was there of guilt is condemnation, self-condemnation. So guilt, it has a purpose. You're right. You're absolutely right with this. It has a purpose if it brings us an understanding that there was a different, more helpful way to do something. But once we start to condemn ourselves or others and have this judgment of you're a bad person or I'm a bad person, and I start to, my perspective of myself or other people and their worth or my worth starts to diminish because of what I've done or haven't done, then it becomes unhelpful when we start to condemn and judge another person based on action. So sometimes we take actions that are you know, there's a need, but we make a mistake in how we try to fulfill that need. And so now there's guilt or there's regret, the acknowledgement that it wasn't the most appropriate way, or someone else makes a mistake and that wasn't the most appropriate way. But to equate what someone does with who someone is isn't always accurate. Because we're all trying, you know, we're all in the soup together. Yeah, so I just thank you for bringing that up, because I wanted to make that distinction. If I'm not this body, then I'm also not my mistakes.
Yes, we see that in chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita, you know, that we are not actually the cause of our action or the modes of working. But if we really want to look deeply in that term, guilt and shame, it will take a lot of time. Okay, take example of King Vena. King Vena has made a preparation for the Yagya. And the Yagya Brahmanas, they have made all the attempt to see that the Yagya comes successful, but it was not as they wish. But King Anga asked, what is actually going on? Am I the cause? Am I guilty of anything? They said, no, you are not guilty of anything. But we have seen in your previous life, you have nothing. But because of the strong desire, so we can see guilt also can be connected with desire. So that is the reason I just, shorten it. We can have problem with guilt and shame if there is still more, there's still more concern, there is still more interest. We still have so much attachment to I and my body. So this guilt and shame was so much, bombard, covered our consciousness. But if there is a little bit absorption in spiritual pursuits, it has little or no place in our life. Because guilt and shame are actually, the term that we often see in the material world. Because in spiritual world, in spiritual practice, in quotes, who is actually the cause? Who is actually the cause of our action? This is what Ishmael tells this to Rasta. You're thinking you are the cause of all this action, you're thinking you are guilty. You are not really guilty, you are not really guilty of anything. This person stands close to you, Krishna, is the cause of all these things. So this is my short comments. I'm sorry.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Tribhuvanat Prabhu. Shuma Vara Prabhu, you have something to add to what's going on?
Hare Krishna. Dandavat Pranam to
Hare Krishna.
Mataji and to all the exalted devotees on the platform.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, of course, I wanted to say something about remorse, and Mother Lila already explained that. So, how could we advance, improve, ameliorate if there is no sense of repentance and there's no remorse? So, I think it is part of spiritual life to feel remorse if we do something wrong, in order to be able to go a step further. Of course, repentance and genuine repentance is also, it gives us room for improvement and for, how do you say, getting over the reactions if we have genuine repentance and we feel remorse. Like the mother rightly said also, but the condemnation and judgment, that is another thing. Yeah, then that brings me to a question I'd wanted to ask a long time. In fact, I wanted to make it like a post, but now because this discussion is going on and there's so many, Mother Vraj is here, she can also help. So we've discussed a lot about not judging, not criticizing. So I read this story of a king who called for a feast. He wanted to feast Brahmanas and also give them gifts. And then, so the feast was being prepared in the open, and there was a tent where the Brahmanas were sitting. So while these very expert cook were mixing up the sabji and all the wonderful khichdi and all that stuff, so there was an eagle that was going up in the sky with a snake, dead snake in his mouth, and some droplets from the snake, poisonous drops, drop into the mixture of food that was on the fire. And so when these Brahmanas were fed, they had problems. Some died. And then when they analyzed the cause, they found that the food was poisoned. So now Chitragupta, the secretary of Yamaraj, was looking at whose fault, to whom he should apportion the blame, and who should get the reaction for what happened, especially for the death and the inconvenience caused to the Brahmanas.
Chitragupta has a big job to do, I tell you.
So he checked his list, he looked very closely, and he said, no, it's not the king, because the king had good intention and he had arranged the best of things. You see, the cook, no, of course, the cook were unaware of what happened. Okay, maybe it's the eagle. No, eagle, of course, was also ignorant that what happened. Maybe, okay, it's the snake. No, the snake was dying, and he could not have done that purposely. Just so who should carry the blame for this? So Chitragupta decided, okay, he's going to wait, but somebody has to suffer. Somebody should be punished for this. So it happened that other Brahmanas who came late were coming, and they asked help from a lady to know where the spot, where the venue where this feast was going on. That the king was feeding Brahmanas with special gift also accompanying. And the lady said, hey, why? Don't waste your time. That king has already poisoned some Brahmanas. So you go there, you'll be poisoned. So the Brahmanas returned. And immediately Chitragupta said, wow, this lady has to bear the result of this, because she has spoken ill of the king. And the king didn't do it. So for speaking ill or criticizing, even though it was not with malice, but she was just saying what was right, what was happening. So Chitragupta decided to put the blame on the lady. Now, the lesson is that if we criticize unjustly, we will be punished, just like Chitragupta did to this lady. But even still, if we criticize, and what we're saying is true, according to the lesson, they say that we will bear half of the reaction of that person. So now, my question is this. Chitragupta himself, what he has done, is it right? And who judges him? Is it right to punish this lady just warning people not to go to where they're eating poisonous food? So anyway, it goes on like this, that it may be very difficult to actually say anything when something is going wrong if we have to go by this kind of lesson. So it's very disturbing, because what kind of world we'll be living in if you are at constant fear that if I say something about what is going wrong, I'm going to get negative reaction? Is that really the kind of world Krishna wants us to live in? So please kindly enlighten me. That's my question. And I want everybody to please contribute to this.
Krishna's two Bhagavan Swayam. Oh my goodness. Mother Lila, the ball is in your court, please.
Oh, let's give it to Raja Lila. And sorry. Wow, what an amazing story. Thank you. Raja Lila, I'll let you comment. I have a comment, but I'll let you comment first, please. I'll ask you to please comment.
No, please go ahead. You're giving the class. I'm here to listen. No, I'll comment after you.
Okay, I'd never heard this story, and I have so many questions. Yeah, my first thought was, why do we have to find someone to punish when we know the reality is if Krishna wants to save you, nothing will kill you, and if Krishna wants to kill you, nothing will save you. And so really in our world or in this Lila, there's a, is it just me? I hear a loud, oh, thank you. Let's see.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Yeah.
If Krishna wants to save you, nothing can kill you. So I wonder, my first question is, why do we have to find someone to punish? As far as the question about, criticizing, but saying something that's inaccurate, to me, it just brings this, brings the point that we should always be mindful of what we're sharing. There's this very simple formula for when we say something. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? There's also another version of that. Does this have to be said? Does this have to be said by me? Does this have to be said right now? And so before we share something, you know, this is a big thing on the internet. People share things because they, I think sometimes their desire or their need is to protect others or to disseminate information that they may find helpful. So they're trying to care for others. But sometimes the things that we're sharing or repeating need to be fact-checked first. We should make sure, I think, or at least have the practice of questioning what we're saying to, you know, back it up with some, like, where is this? Who said that? You know, we practice this, you know, somewhere in the Srila Prabhupada, there's a purport where he says that this is one of the ways that people do, where you question the thing that you're hearing or you're giving some instruction and you say, Prabhu, is this a Vedic instruction? You know, we have to be discerning, not only in what we hear. You know, this lady, if someone comes and says, oh, this happened, you know, you should be careful. Ask questions. Oh, who told you? Or are you sure? Because we don't always know. And sometimes we're too quick to just believe. And then that's how rumors get started. We don't know all the details. We don't know the full story. And so being curious and asking questions. And I have this habit, you know, someone says, oh, you know, where is it in Shastra that, you know, what canto, what verse, you know, and it's not because I'm questioning the validity of it. I just want to know, especially if I'm going to repeat it to someone else. We don't want to spread false information. You know, this in the US, it's referred to as fake news. So this lady was spreading fake news. As far as her punishment, I'm not sure that she deserve that. She was caring for people. She didn't want anyone else to be punished. So yeah, just being questioning what is being shared. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Lila. Thanks so much. Varaha Prabhu, that's such a critical thinking question. And I believe this story applies universally, you know, in cultures and also in spiritual cultures, in material culture, spiritual culture. So I guess one of the thoughts that come to me, I have a story I will share about my experience with Bhaktitirtha Maharaj. But first, I want to share this Bhagavad Gita verse. I think it's Bhagavad Gita 17:15 or 17:14. You want to pull that up, Saha? I think it's 17:15.
Okay.
17:15.
Yeah, 17:15.
Okay.
Yeah. This is a Bhagavad Gita verse that's in my toolbox. Like my toolbox means I keep a box in my consciousness with some verses and also some very secular things that help me in my Krishna consciousness. So this verse, it says, what is austerity of speech? And it's not clear, Saha.
Can you see now?
No.
Okay, let me try it again.
And then I'll tell a quick story of
Is it better now?
one of my first. No, but I think I know that verse. Austerity of speech, it consists in speaking words that are
Truthful,
truthful, pleasing,
pleasant, beneficial, and not agitating to others, and also in regularly reciting Vedic literature.
Yeah, so this Mataji, her words were not pleasing, they were not beneficial, and they certainly were not appealing, because you're speaking about people, you're speaking about this, you're saying something about the king, you're saying something that is going to agitate the minds of those persons that are hearing it. And so, yeah, so Chitragupta is doing his service, you know, and sometimes when we do our service, it's not always understood. This is the challenge. However, I remember very early in my Krishna conscious life, I think the first time I went to India. So that's in the purport, one of the first things Prabhupada says, one should not speak in such a way as to agitate the minds of others, right? So then he qualifies this by speaking about teachers and, you know, what makes a distinction? What is the distinction between when you speak to agitate the minds of others? So she may not have consciously wanted to agitate the minds of those persons she was speaking to. However, it was agitating. So once I was in Juhu Temple, one of my first times going to India, and I was there with Guru Maharaj. And one person there asked me, I was new actually at that time. I think I'd only been a devotee for a couple of years. And they asked me some question. I can't exactly remember what the question was, but anyway, whatever my answer was to those persons, my Guru Maharaj was there, our Guru Maharaj was there. And so then after I spoke to that person, he called me aside and he said to me, he said, I want you to find Satsvarup Maharaj's book on japa reform. And I want you to read page 54. And I want you to come back and tell me what you read. And so I was just kind of bewildered because, you know, I was like, man, this is a lot of responsibility to put on me, you know, because I just thought I was in a conversation, you know. And then so I found that book and I read it. The only thing that I thought that was applicable to that situation is Satsvarup Maharaj in that page. He was speaking about speaking words that are pleasing to others. And so that's the only thing I could pick up, that whatever I said must not have been pleasing to either him or the listener, the person I was speaking to. And so then I went back and I said, this is what I read on page 54. And I don't know, is there something I'm to learn from this? And then he gave me the lesson and he taught me, you know, when you speak in words that will be pleasing for the other person when they hear it. And I remember like, wow, I didn't, you know, I wasn't thoughtful or mindful or aware at that time. And he didn't just tell me, oh, you know, what you said could have disturbed that person's mind. He gave me a lesson. You know, he sent me somewhere to find some relevant persons, that's so much at the time, you know, some relevancy in how Satsvarup Maharaj spoke about Srila Prabhupada, or I think it was, the Japa Reform books, but he was speaking about Prabhupada. So I tell that story only to share that that's one of the embodiment of a compassionate and caring person is they speak words that are pleasing to others, and they don't try to agitate the minds of others. Now, we are learning and we're growing, so we do that. I do that. However, I'm more conscious about it. And I believe, as Lila was saying, awareness about these things are what's most important, because we're, being conditioned. Certainly, we fall into the traps of Maya like this. So, and I just really appreciate this question, or it's not a question, a story you told, Varahan, and what the purport of the story, because it applies in situations that we kind of don't often think about, but it's very deep. It's a very deep pastime, very deep story. If I have ever spoken any unpleasing words about you in this life, please forgive me so I can be unburdened about that for my next life.
Hare Krishna. Thank you all so beautifully for sharing. But, well, who am I? If I had the power, I would say Chitragupta will lose his job. Chitragupta will lose his job, but who am I? Tribhuvan Prabhu, please unmute.
In fact, Sade Prabhu, I'm in consonant with you, because Chitragupta is subject to correction.
I'm happy about that.
It's subject to correction. Even his Lord. Truly, it's subject to correction.
Thank you. Shumavara Prabhu, you asked the question which started with a beautiful story. And this story, I'm thinking that Yamaraj is in the material world. Even though he's a demigod, he's a material being. And he has at least done similar mistake when he was trying to punish Mandukamuni. And Mandukamuni corrected him and says, come on. And he accepted the correction. So I'm thinking here, Chitragupta, well, Prabhuji, okay, please speak. Oh, Krishna.
Anyway, I thank everyone, Mother Rajalila, all the nice lessons you gave us, especially that verse, chapter 17, text 15. Anidwega Parambakya. Yes, we have to watch what we say, but sometimes, just based on emotion of situation, you just may speak, not because you want to cause harm, but because you are moved by what is happening and you just don't feel that it's good to be silent. We have also seen what silence can cause in the story of Mahabharata, in situations, in a very grave situations, and people who need to speak keep silent. And then later on, of course, we see that they also get their reactions for that. So this is a very, very delicate and serious matter. Whether we have to keep silent when things are going wrong, or whether we have to just turn our eyes other side because we don't want to get the reaction. Of course, there are many ways we can analyze this, because sometimes it's based on still selfish reasons, because I don't want to get bad name, so I don't want people to point fingers at me. So then, even though somebody needs to bell the cat, but is it me who has to say it? Like Mother Lila is saying, is it the right time to say it? All that stuff. Well, we have a lot to learn. That's why I put the question up. But we have to always also look at the bigger picture. And if you don't do something at the hour that something needs to be done, and then just out of our own selfish reasons of not getting bad name or reaction, and we just turn, our eyes, then we're going to get the same punishment like Dronacharya, Bhishma.
Bhishma,
They all
Karna,
kept quiet. All of them kept silent when something
Karna.
bad was going on. They
Yeah.
could have said something, but so that's why if we place moral codes beyond, uh, how do you say, spiritual values.
code. Yeah.
If we put moral code beyond spiritual values, then we are bound to make mistakes. But I think the basic, I may be corrected if I'm wrong. The one basic spiritual code or value is to always do what will be beneficial to everybody, even if it is going to be harmful to us. But we should be always thinking of the welfare of everyone. And sometimes sticking our neck out to do that can be harmful. We may get, bad name, but maybe bigger situation will have been solved. So this is a very deep subject, and I'm happy for your contributions. But I still think that we have to go a long way, go beyond selfish, reasons for not wanting to stick our neck out when there is a situation to be corrected or amended. Thank you very much for the opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I see Sri Bhuvanath Prabhu is there, Saha, and I just want to make this one last comment
Please
to Varaha Prabhu.
It shouldn't
Yes.
be the last, please.
No,
Go ahead.
our spiritual master always encouraged freedom of expression. That was always something that, he taught everyone, disciples and anyone he came in contact with. He said, we are to be humble and brave. At the same time, he also taught us that we need to be very conscientious not to think not to do the right thing in the wrong way. So we need to become critically aware of when we're doing and speaking in ways that will encourage someone as opposed to discourage another person. And that, is based on maturity in so many ways, and it's based on understanding of other people, other cultures, because there's so many things now that is coming up in our organization that we know could have been said differently, because it can bring pain, really. Some things that we know that are said that can bring pain to some people that may not be so mature to understand. So how we say what we say is so very important. At least that's what I learned from Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. I think we all learned that.
Thank you, Mataji. I appreciate that.
Hare Krishna. Sri Bhuvanath Prabhu.
Prabhu, thank you so much. I don't want to, my comment is not correction, but I just want to start with by saying that the name that was mentioned, if you look at it critically, they all have some interest, some intention. Why was it that Vidura was free? Even when Duryodhana insulted him, still he was free. Why? So this question we can ask ourselves. On the other hand, there is a room for criticism, but the criticism should be constructive. And sometimes it should not be directly from the person who you know or who you think that is related to you. There are a hierarchy of correction and there are hierarchy of criticism. Let me put this word across. Brihaspati and Soma. Brihaspati and Soma. Soma was very beautiful, and he run after Brihaspati's wife. And there is nothing Brihaspati could have done, which he has not done, than to consult grandfather, the Sampradaya grandfather, what's the name? Brahman. So Brahman intervened. When Brahman intervened, he was trying to play a kind of a dialogue between Brihaspati and Soma. But still, Tara, the wife of Brihaspati, was not speaking truth. He's looking at Brihaspati, he's looking at him, he was not telling the truth. Meanwhile, the baby in her room criticized her. He said, what kind of unfair lady are you? Why don't you tell the truth? As soon as Brahma heard this story, hear this news from the baby in the room, he take the wife along, from the dialogue section or meeting. He takes Tara away from that section and asks Tara, who actually does this pregnancy belong? He said it was your son. You get the point. So the point here, there is a room for criticism, but like what mother has said, but that criticism should be well organized, especially when we see that if it comes directly from us, it might create a different situation. Then we look for somebody else who can make it more constructive, more applicable to whoever that the criticism or correction should be given. There's a room, the Shastra gives room for criticism, but that criticism should not create diversity in organization. This is my comment.
Thank you so much, Tribhuvannath Prabhu. That's one of my favorite stories, Brihaspati and Chandra and Tara and the son, Buddha. Now, when Lord Brahma took Tara to one corner and asked her, you please tell me, because Lord Brahma was able to give Tara assurance that, yes, this is somebody who is confident, I can confide in him. And as soon as Tara confided in Lord Brahma just came out and announced, hey, now I got this. All right, so in that case, Lord Brahma could also be disciplined. He also didn't do it right way, but it's okay. Hare Krishna. LILA, back to you. It's your class.
That's why Brahma gets chastised by Krishna so much.
Yes,
right?
Lord Brahma, yes. He deserves it.
No confidentiality.
No confidentiality, yes.
Yeah, I think the lesson here is that everyone is fallible, including the demigods, except Krishna, right? He's the only one that's known as Achyuta.
Yes.
Chai, I see Hari Chakradas.
Oh, yeah, Hari Chakra Prabhu.
Yeah.
Please unmute.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, my dandavat to all of you. All glories to Gurudev, all glories to Prabhupada. Unfortunately, I was not in the beginning of this class because, like Mother Vrajala would say, maybe today I'm using my physical body, looking for money. But the question I'm asking is that this topic that is going on, it's been there previously a little bit. And my question is, we keep saying we shouldn't criticize, but some of the things that we say, I think we are, the way I'm seeing it is that maybe we are confusing two things, like telling the truth and criticizing. Because sometimes somebody will be doing the thing. Is it that we don't have to tell, we have to know how to tell the truth? We just have to learn how to tell the truth so that we don't get someone upset or something, or criticism, because sometimes it's just, you are just telling the truth, but we still brand it as being criticizing something. It's, let me give a crude example. It's like we are in the Prashadam hall. We are serving everything. I get my plate, I put down. I try to turn around, someone puts his hand in my plate and pick something from my plate. Then I see the person and I try to address it. Am I criticizing the person or I'm just speaking the truth?
What did the devotee take from your Prashadam plate? Bread. That is the only thing you will fight. You only fight over bread, nothing else.
Halava.
So So
Oh,
my
he's not ready.
my question is it truth? Like I was just hearing what Madam Rajala just said, and it just hit me that how we should learn how to present situations to get the better better results out of it, rather than to getting someone upset. So is it the truth that we should learn how to say the truth properly so that we don't agitate other people, or do we still brand that truth to be a form of criticism? Did I make myself clear?
Yes.
Yeah, I want to answer this. This is Lila's class, but I want to just add part Hare Chakra Prabhu, that in that story I told about Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj asking me to read this verse, this part of Sasri Maharaj's book. One of the things that was mentioned in there was speaking palatable truths. Those were the two words. The truth is to be pleasing. It's supposed to be palatable. Means that the other person, we need to say it in a way that the other person can hear it. Otherwise, if the other person can't hear it, we won't have a conversation. Okay, Lila, I'm sorry.
No, please. It's okay. It's all good. I particularly love this point because sometimes silence means acceptance, and we also have to be careful. I think we have to be very, very discerning. And so let's first define criticizing as opposed to bringing attention and awareness to something that needs to be amended because it's harmful to others. There's crimes that we can't sit by and just do nothing because we don't want to criticize. We can see in history, in almost the entire world's history, the damage that is caused by people not bringing awareness to what is going wrong, what someone is doing that is harmful to others. It's dangerous. People die from silence. Silence can kill. So at the same time, let's define criticism as it's being spoken about in our Shastra or in the purports. It's defined as fault finding. It's when we're purposely for the sake of our own ego and our own aggrandizement, so that we could feel better, find faults in others and say them out loud. There's a very clear difference, at least I can experience in my mind when I ask myself honestly, why am I sharing this? Is it because it's really helpful, or is it because it's somehow making me feel good, or it's feeding my false ego? This is one of the main reasons it is said. I don't know if this is how true this is or not, but one of the main reasons why people engage in certain kind of talk or in certain kind of, let's say, entertainment, because we want to feel better than other people. And so when we see people with faults, we automatically will feel better. Not always, but it's something that happens with the false ego. And then the Mahabharata begins with, well, at least, we talked about different versions, but there's one translation by a devotee. His name is Andy Frankel. I don't remember his devotee name, but the way he starts it off with Krishna telling the story of the sage who was asked if he had seen the people that were being chased by these criminals. And he was so attached to telling the truth that he told of their location, and they ended up dying. So speaking the truth also can be harmful. And Krishna condemns this. So I think it's a really important question. It's case by case basis, because it also is dangerous to not speak up about things that are happening, especially when it comes to situations with persons who are unable to speak up for themselves for whatever reason. So deep questioning of our motives, I think, is required, and it's always case by case. Things sometimes we have a tendency as people, as humans, to blanket everything. Everything is a blanket statement. Like in the example of this sage, one must always tell the truth. Well, always telling the truth is a really good practice. It's in Bhagavad Gita. Truthfulness is one of the qualities that we want to. I think it's also described as knowledge, and it's also one of the qualities in the mode of goodness that we want to practice. But we just saw the example of, there's also when people are running for their lives, not just in this example of the sage, but it's happened in our history. All these different countries, as someone can be hiding from some criminals or someone who means them harm, and people have risked their lives to protect them and had to lie and say, no, I haven't seen them, they're not here, and they're hiding somewhere. This is great acts of courage have been performed by telling a lie. And so we can't do blanket statements, case by case basis, consulting Guru, Sadhu, Shastra before we make a decision. Yeah, this is an excellent conversation.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, Mother Lila. And thank you for allowing us to kind of become secondary, tertiary speakers today also. It's beautiful. What I just want to say is that this is my own policy, which I try to use to guard and guide myself. And that is, this world we live in is a world of relativity. It's not an absolute world. And so nothing in this world is absolute. We are asked not to lie to our gurus, but that does not mean that under every circumstance, I have to tell the truth to my guru, which is kind of, excuse me my language, very crazy to say, that do not tell the truth to your guru. But it requires intelligence to know when not to tell the truth to the guru or to disobey the guru. There have been few examples in our scriptures where great devotees disobeyed their gurus. Sometimes it is not a disobedience per se, but it appears to be disobedience because the guru asked the disciple to do something and the disciple said no. Narada Muni is the spiritual master of Dhruva Maharaj. He asked him, you are too little. No, don't perform anything. Go back home. He didn't. He disobeyed him. But that was a test Narada Muni was giving him. So we may not know. Like what all of you have been saying, not quite along in US history. I mean, we know Jim Jones, what happened? Jim Jones, that crazy cult. Some of the members knew what was going on, but they were all scared and afraid. They felt nobody should say anything. And what happened? They all perished. But the important thing here, again, is having the proper intelligence to know when to do what. Like a proper in the US, it says do the right thing at the right time, at the right place, to the right person. So like 5 different rights. You have to put all these things into consideration and then you embark on them. So it's amazing, beautiful class today. So much to learn.
I love that. That's a great point, that nothing is absolute. And also because we are in the material world, unfortunately, everything is contaminated. Even the best things that we, you try to do something good, it's all contaminated. There's some contamination to everything. We can just do our best. But nothing is pure here. This is where we are, unfortunately.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I like to talk, but I just remembered one other incident. When Arjun wanted to marry Krishna's sister, Subhadra, and Krishna's big brother, Balaram, was opposed to that because he wanted to give Subhadra to his dearest disciple, Duryodhana, and Krishna didn't want that. And Arjun was afraid that if he attempted still going in for Subhadra, Lord Balaram was going to deal with him, and he knows that he cannot fight Balaram. So he was reluctant, and he approached Krishna. And Krishna said, "What are you approaching me for? You love it, you want it, go for it." He says, I'm afraid, Lord Balaram. He says, "And so what?" He said, "You will fight me." I said, "Yes, fight him." That's the Krishna we're worshiping. Lord Balaram is going to fight you, and so what? And so I actually asked Krishna, so if it were you, would you do it and then fight him? He says, "Yes, I want it, I will go for it." So
Hi.
Chakra, I think this may be the last contribution. We've kept Mother Lila here for more than 2 hours. Chakra Prabhu,
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah. I thank Vajalila and Mother Lila for the input they gave about the question I asked. Thank you guys very much. I mean, because I was getting a little bit confused until you chip in this comment, and more especially, like I remember one time. I remember one time in Ghana, we were having a program, a radio program like this, and in an interfaith program between the Muslim, the Christian, myself, and the traditional worshiper. And it came up like we were talking about truth, that when do we have to speak the truth? And because I had read what Mother Lila was just describing about the sage who people were running and they came and he pointed out where the people were and the people were killed. So I told them that, well, it's not every day that you tell the truth, because sometimes you have to lie. And that lie is not, you are not held accountable for lying. And I also brought up the issue of a businessman, that if you are a businessman, you have to lie to make profit. So that lie, you can't be held accountable. And so the Christian was challenging that, no, as a man of God, you have to tell the truth always. So I brought up the issue in the Bible where God asked Samuel to go and anoint David. And Samuel was telling God that if I go and tell Saul that the Supreme Lord has asked me to come and anoint David, Saul will kill me. And God told Samuel, don't tell him the truth. Don't tell him the truth. So when I brought that up, then the host asked the Christian about it, and he couldn't answer it. And we see in our system too, like when Yudhishthira wanted to, when Krishna wanted Bhima to kill the elephant Aswatthama, and Krishna wanted Yudhishthira to announce it because he knows it's only Yudhishthira who announced it, that people will take it as credible. And Yudhishthira didn't want to do it. But this way, Krishna found another way to do it. So I'm very grateful to the speaker today, and I'm also grateful to Mother Vrajalila for the input they gave about this truth thing. Of course, like if even it's a truth, then we might have to know how to present the truth in such a way that we don't cause more conflict, but rather to find a way to resolve issues. But somehow or the other, the truth must be spoken anyway, but in a very, very nice way. Thank you all very much. Thank you very much, Mother Lila and Mother Vajalila. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu. This is great. Yes, it's all it's like Sahadev said, this is the Krishna that we're worshiping, and he takes everything that we think we know and he turns it in his head on its head. He turns it all upside down, and you think some things are wrong, and then he's stealing butter, and then we talk about, we think we know morality, and then he's stealing gopis' clothes, and he's having these affairs, and We don't know. We have no idea. It's inconceivable. And this is one of the things that he brings us. He throws everything away and comes with his own rules, and we're just having to try to learn and try to understand. And even with Bhishma, you know, he thinks he's doing so good. He's like, I'm going to keep my promise. And then what does Krishna do? He shows him how to break a promise. This is the amazingness of Krishna. Jai.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much. Mother Lila, thank you. Mother Raj, Shriman Varaha, and all assembled Vaishnavas. We can't thank you enough for your patience, your love, your dedication, and contributions to this forum, and more particularly to today's class. Without much ado, we're going to humbly request the devotees to kindly unmute, and then we chant a big Hare Krishna Maha Mantra to express our appreciation to our speaker for being here today and giving us her love. Jai. Hare
Krishna,
Hare
Krishna,
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 Hare
Hare,
Hare
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Hare Rama,
Rama,
Rama
Hare
Rama,
Hare.
Hare Hare.
Chakantapurviyascha,
Sindhuvya
Kripasinduvyascha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo,
Yo
Vaishnavebhyo.
Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai.
Lila Devi ki jai.
Oh, Hare Krishna.
All glories to the assembled devotees. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Jai. Haribol Prabhus.
Hare Krishna. So, dear devotees, we meet again, same time, same place tomorrow, by Krishna's willing. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mother Lila. Hare Krishna.
My lady.